So thanks everyone again for being here, and yeah, thanks Jackie for being here as well. So this series is actually, well, you've probably, most people who've, I'm looking at your names now, most people who are in this webinar have been to this series before. It's called New Voices, where I interview, usually together with David, photographers who are part of the VII Mentor Program and the Leica Women Photo Project. And Jackie is one of these amazing women who's part of this. So yeah, I think we should start. Maybe Jackie, you can start by introducing yourself and kind of explaining, yeah, who you are and what you do.
Cool. So I'm Jackie Molloy. I'm a photographer based in New York City, and I do a lot of different kinds of work. I work daily assignment work for publications, as well as working on really long form, intimate storytelling. I didn't always know I wanted to be a photographer, but I did go to school for photography, and I fell in love with photojournalism and kind of learned what it was there. So yeah, I don't know. That's a little about me.
Sounds perfect. Sounds like a similar journey I had in some way, like not knowing what you want, but then studying and thinking, okay, this might be actually a really cool journey. And it is, and you're right in the middle of it. So I'm just curious, which publications did you work for recently?
Yeah, I work with Smithsonian, National Geographic, New York Times, Washington Post, NPR, and other editorial clients like that.
What a beautiful list. Really nice. Okay, we're going to talk about that later. But let's first talk a bit about your background. Like, where did you grow up? When did you get your first camera and why?
Okay, so I grew up right outside of New York City on this place called Long Island. I don't know, unless you're kind of from here, I don't know that you'll know that. But and then I always liked taking pictures, but I don't think I ever realized that you could like make a profession out of it yet. So growing up, I always had a camera, but I didn't really see myself being a photographer. And then I was actually thinking about going to school for graphic design for college. And I went to this portfolio review, and like when you go for portfolio reviews, you know, you have a little bit of everything, right? You have like a few photos, some illustrations, some graphics. And this man actually during a portfolio review was like, these 5 photos are the only interesting thing in this entire book. And I was like, oh my God. And I like panicked, and I went to my mom and I was like, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, I don't know, like maybe you could be a photographer. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I could. And then she kind of just like dropped me off in the middle of New York City one day and was like, just try to take some pictures and like, see if you like this. And I was like, well, what if I hate it? She's like, then we just wasted a day, like kind of who cares, you know? And then I just started photographing, and I was instantly drawn to photographing people as they were and like kind of candidly documenting them. And it really was kind of an accident that I even like applied for where I went to school. I went to Rochester Institute of Technology, and it was only because this photographer came and visited my high school class and happened to be like, I'm a photojournalist. I'd like never heard of that word before. And he's like, and I went to this school, and I was like, oh, I'll apply to that school. And I like added it to my list. And then fast forward, got to college and was like, cool, candid photography, like this is what I want to do. And mind you, I didn't even know how to use a camera off of auto. Like I didn't know what shutter speed meant or like aperture or any of the basics of this, you know, world that I was stepping into. And I was kind of like, all right, just be a sponge, like learn everything you can and absorb it. And I loved it, and it was amazing. And I was so happy. I went to RIT and I had a great experience there. I actually started the story that I'm going to share with you guys today while I was a student, which was great. So that's kind of how it all happened.
What an amazing journey, and how cool that your mom kind of just dropped you off and said, okay, go take pictures. That's amazing. Do you
Yeah.
still have those pictures? Like, are they anywhere or?
I do. I have this like folder that sometimes I show classes when I'm presenting to them, and I'm like, this is where I started. And they're like pretty awful pictures, but you know, and then like you know, I obviously kept going back and I started making some around my town, and you know, I really fell in love with it very quickly, which was great. And then, like I said, then I was like, what's a photojournalist? And it's really funny because my mom hates when I tell people this, but I wasn't allowed to like watch or read the news growing up. My mom was always like, the news is bad. So then when I wanted to do this, my mom was like, you want to be like a paparazzi or something? And I was like, no. And like, I was like, I want to bring some like good to the news. So that was kind of, and that's kind of the direction that I've taken my work, is like these feature stories and these really intimate family stories and things that teach you something new while kind of showing everyday life.
Yeah, without it having too much focus on the news, more contemporary issues, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Just like, I don't know, giving some like, you know, brightness to the news. So everything, so then my mom can't say that the news is all bad, although a lot of it is. So, you know.
Although she was right a little bit. Yeah, she
She's a little right. Yeah.
It's amazing. Sounds a bit like when I was in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to become when I was, growing up. And so I finished high school in the Netherlands, where I'm from. And then I went on like a gap year to the United States. And I ended up in high school again there in my senior year, which I already finished in the Netherlands, but I did it again in America. And in the Netherlands, we didn't have photography class. And in my high school in America, we did. So I took the photography class and I was the same like you. That's why I'm telling this story. I was like, is this a job? Like they were talking about photojournalism. Like you can actually go out with a camera and make money taking pictures of like life. I just couldn't believe it. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And I signed up for photojournalism or for journalism school right away. And when I flew back home about a year later, I went to university to become a photojournalist. It's really how weird, but also so weird that we don't learn that these jobs are jobs, or maybe I just didn't pay attention, but I
don't know. I mean, I think at the time, especially like when I was in high school, a lot of like the art programs were being cut at the time. And I don't even know if that's still the case. I'm sure it is in certain districts, but I remember having a guidance counselor who was like so against me doing anything creative. She was like, you're not going to make money. You're just going to like fail. Like you can go to college for it, but you're not really going to be able to do it. And then now I'm kind of like, watch me.
Exactly.
So yeah, it worked out. I should email her. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you should. I had a similar experience when I finished the journalism school, because everyone was like, oh, you really think you can become a journalist? There's no money, there are no jobs. And then I was getting my first assignments, and then I was kind of climbing up with more international clients. Now, I really wanted to email these teachers and say, watch me now. I never did, but maybe, who knows, one day.
Maybe someday.
Okay, well, I would love to see the work that you started while being a student. So if you can share your screen.
Absolutely. So this is the Larson family, and they're a family that has quadruplets. And I actually met them on a school assignment that we had to photograph a family for 2 weeks, and we were all given a specific town. And my friend Emily, who's also a photojournalist, actually met these people in a park, and she called me. And Emily and I were always like a little bit competitive at the time. And she calls me and she's like, hey, like, how's your story working out? And I was like, oh, it fell through. Like, I'm not going to do it. Why? And she's like, I met these quadruplets in a park. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, here we go. And she goes, but I think you should do it, because like, I don't really love to work with kids that much. And I was like, really? So we asked our professor if we could trade towns, because she had a different town than me. And then that night I went over and I met the Larson family, and it was pretty quickly established, like when I started working with them, that I really felt like this was a really special story and could be like a really beautiful coming of age story. So like, I think it was only 3 days into me working with them that I said to their mom, how would you feel about if I worked on this till like they're 18? And she's like, yeah, that would be okay.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know that we actually like meant it in that moment, but then very quickly after, probably like a few weeks after, I was like, can I come back? And she was like, yeah. And I just kind of kept coming back and I never stopped coming back. So now 8 years later, this is
Oh,
a body of work that I love. And I love this story. It's been really beautiful to like watch these kids grow and change and come into themselves, and like forever grateful that this mom was just like, sure, come back over and over again, like come on our family vacations, come to all our special
wow.
events, and has let me kind of into their lives.
Wow, it's
Now,
amazing. And do
yeah,
you, when you are there, do you stay in their house? Do you
I
sleep?
do most of the time. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll stay with like a professor or a friend nearby, but most of the time I like to stay with them because then I'm really there with them the whole time. In this house, because they've since moved, since some of these photos have been made, I used to sleep in their basement. And now one of the girls has like a trundle kind of bed situation in her room. So I'll like sleep in the second bed.
All right.
But yeah,
That's
so I always stay
beautiful.
with them. I'm sure that'll change as they become teenagers and they don't want me to do that anymore.
Yeah, that might change. You're right. So
Yeah,
you've seen this whole family through everything. I can imagine you saw them change, and of course you see them grow.
right.
And they didn't move house in the meantime. I can imagine with 4 kids.
Yeah, so now they have. So I think it was probably, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years ago, they did move into a bigger house, and you'll kind of see the photos change. So like in this house, they had the boys in one room and the girls in another room. And now all the kids have their own room, and the parents have an extra bathroom, which is their favorite thing in the world. They have their own bathroom, which is very important when you have 4 kids, okay?
Yeah.
So
Wow. And do you keep like, how many times a year do you see them? You just mentioned special events. Do you go to like the birthday or?
yeah, it varies depending on the year. I always try to change up the seasons, especially because like New York has a lot of seasons and I want them to kind of show different aspects of it. I've been there for birthdays. I've been there. One of the girls, it's not in this edit, but she like had a surgery. I went on a family vacation with them. So I kind of try to change things. I went to school with them during the pandemic. I thought that was important to kind of get some like mask photos of like this crazy time that we were living in. So yeah, I really try to change it up. It's actually really hard to go when they are in school because then they're at school all day and I can't go to school with them every single day. So then
Yeah.
I just sit at home by
Yeah.
myself. So I actually try to go on weekends or like summer break or like breaks of school, or I'll go like a Thursday to a Monday. So I get like one school day and then that's it.
Uh-huh.
But I usually see them once or twice a year, depending on the year.
Okay. That's beautiful. So how many, well, that's a stupid question, but I want to know anyways. How many pictures do you think you have by now? Because that's a difficult edit.
Yeah, I just actually went through the entire archive and I don't know the exact number, but I know I have like around 20,000 photos of
Wow. Yeah, I
them,
can
which is
imagine.
crazy when you really
Yeah.
think about it. But this edit is like 21. So I was like trying to narrow it down, which was exceptionally hard. And I was actually talking to a friend about it last night and I was like showing him more pictures. He's like, this one's so good and this one's so good. I was like, you can't keep adding them. Like, but yeah,
Yeah, you're right. That's impossible. That's probably
it
so
really,
many things, but they're really, really beautiful. And
thank
how
you.
throughout those 8 years, I can imagine you and your style of photography also changed.
Yeah, it definitely has. I think, I mean, especially when I was a student, I think I was really about like framing perfectly, making sure my lines were all even. And like, obviously, I always kind of watch my edges of a frame to make sure they're intentional. But I really think now that I've kind of grown into my craft and what I'm doing, I think of it a little more, like a little more poetically. I'm not so, I used to like hate when the kids would like do like loser at me or like pick their nose intentionally. And now I kind of see those as like some of my favorite pictures of them weirdly later, because it shows like the phases that they went through. So I think when I was younger, I couldn't let go of like things not being perfect. And now I kind of like go into the chaos with them because it just works better usually.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, it's definitely changed. I even was saying earlier, like, I think they're growing, right? So like when they were little, they were 2, and like my angle to them was always down a little bit. And now the boys are like almost my height because I'm very short. So as they get taller, I feel like even angle wise, things are going to kind of like change, and to see that perspective change will be really interesting.
Yeah, of course. It will be amazing in the end when everything comes together. Do you think you'll stop when when they are 18, or?
I don't know. They're gonna turn 18, and they're a Mormon family. So like they might go on missions, and like some of them might go to college. So I mean, they also might get married younger. I don't know, that really depends on them and like what decisions that they make. But I'm very open to like continuing to photograph them if they'll let me. I also am like wondering if they're gonna let me come to like prom and graduation with them, because I
Yeah,
really
exactly.
want to. Obviously, like it's hard because their parents have kind of consented for them this whole time so
Yeah.
far. And they'll definitely get to an age where they might not want to be photographed. And like those are conversations that we'll have to have. I mean, they have moments when we're together where they don't want to be. And sometimes we'll talk about them, and I'll like ask them why, and I kind of like give them some space. But other times it's mostly when they're like being emotional and they're having like a moment, and they don't want me to be like capturing them crying or something like that, which I try to handle gently when it occurs. But it's hard. So I think as they get older, these are like conversations we're going to have more so with the kids than the parents, because the parents have already kind of said it was okay. They've let me come back all these years.
And what would you like to make in the end? Or have you made in between? You've maybe made like a book or something in between already, or?
Yeah, I've had it published for like different points of their lives. So like it first published on New York Times's Lens blog, and then it published in Washington Post when they went to kindergarten, because they were born as micro preemies. So they were born at like 25 weeks. They were really, really small. It's kind of a miracle that they're all alive and thriving. So the fact that they got to kindergarten on time was like a huge milestone. So we did a science story for Washington Post then. And then a few years later, it like published for Mother's Day somewhere. So I try to find little hooks here and there to like keep republishing the work through the years, but I haven't done a book or anything like that. I'm hoping that one day this will be a book, and it will be like a giant exhibition that has like all these years of them, and I collect their like drawings and paintings, and I'm sure they're going to get social media someday, and I want to have parts of them mixed into it as well. So I think that'll end up being really fun. Once I tried to give them a disposable camera once, and they literally took every photo they could have on the roll in like 5 minutes. And I was like, all right, you're too young for this. We're not going to do this again for a few more years.
Yeah. Well, you can
So,
instruct them a little bit more, and they understand that but that's a good idea to involve them in the storytelling process and to give them a voice as well.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like half the photos were of me also. And I was like, you guys, which could be fun, but maybe not what I was going
Not the
for.
idea.
So yeah.
So have they changed in the way they behave towards you?
Not really. I think what's kind of special about how young I started with them, they were 2 when I met them, was that I've always been Jackie the girl with the camera. And that's a really good place to be, actually. Like I remember going on vacation with them a few years ago. We went to Florida, and they were like, why aren't you using your camera? Because I was just like laying by the pool with them. But I was like, well, I don't have to take pictures every time. And they're like, why? Like they didn't understand like when I didn't have it. So that's actually like a great place to be at, because that now they know that like when I come, like my camera comes with me. So I mean, like I said, as they're getting older, they obviously have more of an opinion of like what they want to be photographed. But for the most part, they're really open to it. And now they actually think it's kind of cool to see themselves. Actually, Ashlyn, the one on the right in this photo, her mom texted me like a month ago that they had to Google themselves in school, and like nothing came up for the other kids, and she Googled her and all the publishings came up, and she was like, what is this?
Wow.
And so, that's also going to be a part of it, is like they are going to be able to see that, you know, all these things happened and read the articles about them. So
Yeah.
yeah, that
Wow.
was
Yeah,
kind of
that's
funny.
totally, that must have been weird for her because she probably didn't know that at the,
Yeah.
right? That
Right. I
she
mean,
could
they knew
Google
that
it.
like things had published, but I don't think they fully understood it until she like
Exactly.
Googled her own name and like no one else's had come up and hers came up. So that was
So
kind of
what
different.
has changed? Well, has anything changed in your okay, let's rephrase this. So I did a 12-year photo project.
Mhm.
And when I was making the book, in the end, I realized I liked my images from the first years less. They
Mm,
weren't as strong because I learned throughout the 12 years.
right.
So I was really struggling to make edits, including my older images. You just mentioned that you now have a different style. Sometimes you will include the like images that you would have never included years ago. But
Right.
I'm also curious if the images that you took, especially in that first moment when they were 2 years old,
Mm.
do you still like them? Can you use them? Are they up to standard, your standard now, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. You know, if anything, I think re-editing the work, it was interesting because I hadn't updated it in so long. So I probably had like 4 years of new work that wasn't in the old edit that I had for them. So I was trying to figure out, how do you show like them at 2 to them at 10 and like put that all together and make it make sense and like weave it in. So that was like the hardest part, but I'm gonna, because this is the end image anyway, so I can kind of go back. But these images, like this one, and
That's all from the first moment.
like yeah, maybe not the first moment, but these are probably from 2014 to 2017. So like, you know, the first 3 years of working on it. This one's from
I
like
love this
the
one.
first one of the first days I met them.
That's
So
a
yeah,
beautiful image. And do
thank
they like, I mean, you can tell they really don't mind you being there at all. It's lovely to see how they are so focused on the TV. I'm curious for the parents how involved they are. For instance, would they be on a call like this now in a webinar? Do they know this is going on? Did you invite them
I
or
did
stuff like
invite them. Yeah, I
that?
did. I told Courtney, the mom's name is Courtney. I told her about it, and they're actually in Florida now because they go for like this is like the winter break for the kids, or the spring break. I don't know what they call it, but they're there right now at their grandma's house. And I told her about it. I don't know, she might be here. I didn't look at the participants, but I let her know, and I told her I was going to talk about it. And you know, as I edit, I send them kind of photos along the way. When we went to Florida, I made them like a vacation book. I made them like just a little mixed book. And I sent one to the parents and one to their grandma, just to like have fun vacation photos
Nice.
for them. So we're in touch a lot. I mean, the kids always call for my birthday. I call for their birthday. You know, I text the parents on holidays, and we talk kind of between to like see how things are going. I mean, especially now that the kids, I think, are getting older, and, you know, they're changing a lot. They're coming into themselves. So like, we'll talk about like, if somebody was having a problem in school, I'll be like, hey, how is so-and-so doing in school? Like, how's that going? And like,
Yeah.
I think having some level of communication throughout the years is necessary. Also, like, I care about them. So like, I want to know how they're doing. And then we follow each other on social media. So like, she'll see when I share them or talk about them, or I'll see the kids all the time, which is nice. So I can kind of text her and be like, oh my God, that dive that Ashlyn did at diving practice was great. And like, we can kind of
Exactly.
have like communication there. So social media helps us stay connected, I would say, for sure too, which is
Yeah,
great.
that's such a important part of our lives, to keep in contact with people we work with or that we photograph. I totally
Yeah,
agree. And
absolutely.
are there some images that maybe they would ask you not to take or to not use, or are they really like, oh, go ahead and we trust you? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, they're super open about most topics and things. I mean, I've photographed the kids in the bathtub and things like that. I try to be really careful about like what images, if I select any from those that I do publish, just because like this world is a weird place. But otherwise, they're the only really like sensitive, I guess, topic in terms of things is like they are Mormon, so I don't have a lot of access to their church, like going inside of it. So I really wanted like to show their religion, and I think that's going to be harder than I thought, but which is kind of hard because it's such a big part of their lives. So I think it's important. And we've had very like transparent conversations about it and like what ways can we like incorporate it over the years where like we do see it like kind of sprinkled in there a bit. So it's something that we are in communication about, but like there are definitely things that like have happened in the church that like I just don't have access to because I'm not Mormon. So I can't go to those things, you know. So
I can imagine that being a big part of their lives might be a bit frustrating for you. Well, yeah.
I think it's mostly hard just because like, I mean, it's one of those things that like, you know, you work on a long-term project and you always know that you're going to miss things, right? Like, you know that, but in a lot of ways, I kind of only know, and they kind of only know what we're missing. So like you as a viewer wouldn't have really known that you were missing that. So it's a weird like line that you're trying to always figure out because like you obviously want to authentically show them, but you know, if I hadn't told you that they were Mormon, like you probably wouldn't have known that looking at the pictures. And it's not the most important thing about them either, you know? So it's a topic we're still talking about. We're going to figure it out over the years.
I see. For anyone who has a question for Jackie, please put it in the Q&A. Anything, doesn't matter what. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. This is the moment. A question I'm curious about, because I saw your beautiful website with all the beautiful work. Please, everyone, check out her work on her website, because there's a lot of beautiful stories there. What I was curious about, most of your stories, I hope I'm saying this correctly, are about family, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious to know why. Yeah, a lot of them. And they're beautiful. But let me know, like, what is what draws you towards family life and family stories?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it happened on accident in the beginning. You know, we had this family story for school, and I started working with another story that was also about a family of a woman who adopted a bunch of foster children, who's part of my single moms by choice story later, but like I had met her in college. And you know, I kind of found myself being drawn to this topic. And I think I grew up in such a like nuclear family, right? Like it was just my mom, dad, sister, and I. We lived in a very like white, middle class part of New York. And I kind of felt like it wasn't until college that like my bubble was popped a little bit. And I was like, oh, there's like a whole world out here. Crazy. So, and like I said, I didn't really watch the news. So I didn't really have like a lot of access to like seeing other things in the world and different cultures and backgrounds and diversity. And it was really when I went to college that I was like, wow. And I think I was curious about how families, I think that families can provide a really good example of how we're being impacted as a society, right? Like our societal changes, different topics from the LGBTQ community to, you know, fertility treatments and advancements that we're having in science and technology. And I think that it helps provide a really good insight into like looking at daily life and what people are kind of going through. So I really got drawn to it, especially fertility stuff. I happen to have this, I guess, I don't know if it's a condition, but yeah, it's a condition called PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And it's one of the kind of leading causes of infertility. And I got really curious about why is it so hard to like learn about our fertility? Like, it seems like it happens on like online chat rooms and behind closed doors. And it's like kind of how life keeps going. So it was interesting to me. And I started exploring that a lot, more so outside of school, probably from like 2018 on. I really like looked into that topic, and I'm still kind of really in that topic. So yeah, I think women's health, families, parenting, caregiving are all topics that I'm really, really passionate about. And I guess it really does come from a personal place, but it wasn't really intended in the beginning, and now it has definitely taken over and it happens. I do other things too, but this seems to resonate the most, which is great. So
it's beautiful. I mean, it's so important, I think, in this photography business world, universe, to have a topic that you're really crazy about, that you can focus on for a long time, because people will also know if they're looking for this type of photography, and they know to find, where to find you, because you will be known for this work for forever, you know. Like, I think it's very important to actually have a focus on a specific topic.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's something that I really do love to work on. So it's always nice when like publications reach out and they're like, hey, we have this family, like here, you should go. And I'm like, amazing.
Ah,
I would love to do that. So it does work out really well. And it's
that's even
something I
better.
hope continues. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's two questions.
Yeah.
One question. Who helps you with, or what is your process of image selection? Images
Yeah.
in a story. Yeah, sorry.
I think, I mean, that's got a lot of answers to it in a way, because like obviously I go through them and I kind of make wide edits of things, and depending on if I'm working on a story for a publication, then I'm usually working with an editor, and that editor and I will go through things together. For this story, my mentor and I went through this together, and we're also working with somebody else, and she's going to look at it as well. So there's different people. I've also done other mentorship programs. I did one with Ed Kashi, who's also a member of VII, and Jim Estrin at the Anderson Arts Branch Center in Aspen, Colorado. So like I worked on my Single Moms by Choice story while I did that mentorship. So they had a lot of help in helping me edit that. So I think it kind of ranges from like mentors to friends to editors that kind of help. But a lot of the time it is kind of just you, which is like not the best answer, but a lot of times we're editing our own work, and you kind of have to wear that hat and hope that you're doing it right, and that you're not, getting rid of images that are really beautiful and meaningful to somebody else. That's why it's nice to have other eyes on your work. But yeah, for the long-term stuff, I do try to have other people look at it with me to help me navigate it, and just like get the difference of opinion.
I feel it's very difficult to edit my own work, or in general. I think it's very important to ask others, like you are doing, asking your mentor, asking friends, photographers. I really was amazed, actually. I've asked many photographers to look at my work, and my boyfriend is not at all in this industry. And this year I asked him to help me with with sending into awards and making edits and looking at my edits. And there was one specific edit that I made myself, which I was quite proud of. And I showed it to him, and he's like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. What are you trying to tell with this series? And I'm like, and I kind of felt like, what do you know? You're not a photographer. This is the story I want to tell. Look how, like, I made this correctly. He's like, no, really, I wouldn't do it this way. If I were you, I would mix it up like this and this and this and this. And he made changes. And then I thought, this looks kind of, let's do it this way. And I sent in his edit, and it actually won now with 2 awards already. I'm like,
See?
So he took me out for dinner the other day. He's like, I'm taking you out for dinner because we won an award.
Ooh,
I'm like, oh,
funny.
really? Did we? But it's really important to not only ask photographers or just to ask people who are not in the photo industry can be super interesting, because they are the general viewer of work when it's in the newspaper or online or. So and doing it yourself with an edit like this, I really feel 20,000 images. I feel bad for you. That's a lot.
No, this one was daunting. This is like another level. This isn't my normal workflow, but yeah, no, I definitely agree with you though. I think it is really important to like show friends and talk to people. I have a friend who's not a photographer who I talk to a lot about my work, and I'll be like, what do you think of this? Do you even think this is an interesting story? And she'll like let me know, because I don't know, we get kind of drawn to things and we're like, this is a great story, but like other people might be like, is it? So you kind of do have to ask the outside world, what they think, for sure. So
That's so true. Oh, there's another question coming in. How do you maintain boundaries when you stay with the family? What does that look like? How do you navigate the family asking for photos? Do you send them everything or a few selects? And do you share guidelines about what the family does with the photos if the story hasn't been published yet? I really like, especially that last question. I'm also
Yeah.
curious.
Those are great questions.
Yeah.
In terms of boundaries, I mean, when I'm staying with them, there kind of aren't any, if I'm being totally honest, just because I'm there. It's hard sometimes. I think, it's always good to get like some separation between what you're working on. I mean, it just works for me to stay with them and to be there when they wake up and be able to do it. When they were little, they used to wake me up by jumping on me, which was like the best, actually. It was adorable. And so they'd be like, Jackie, get up, we're up. And now they actually are so independent that they just get up and they go about their day and they do their own things. And if I'm like Kylie, whose room I share, Kylie gets up way before I get up. I'm not that early of a person. So she'll just like go downstairs and what have you. So yeah, mostly it's weird when I like because they're kids, so they're like, being funny about it. If I like go shower, they're like, Jackie's naked in the shower. Like they used to do things like that. But there's a lock on the door, so like it's fine, and it's more funny because they're just kids. But yeah, I don't really think we have a lot of things that like a ton of boundaries in terms of when I'm staying with them. I mean, I think I have a pretty good relationship with the parents. So if they're uncomfortable with something, they'll just let me know. And it's usually just a conversation. I do share photos with them throughout the years. I don't send them everything because that's crazy. And I couldn't not do that. And no one has the space for that, so but I do send them photos. I always share with them when a story is going to publish and we talk about that. And they obviously, the mom might get interviewed or I'm interviewed. It depends. I don't really tell them not to put it places. I guess like the only place that she would really put it is on her social media. And she'll usually just ask me and I'll like let her know. But for the most part, it just hasn't really come up a lot. Maybe it will as they get older, but I think she's usually taking pictures and videos of them that she's taken and putting them on her social media. But like she can't like they signed a photo release and like she can't like sign like she can't like sell the images to another publication like without me. Like we've talked about all those kinds of things. What was the last part of that question?
Do you share guidelines about what the family does with the photos? No, you just answered that.
Yeah.
If the story hasn't been published, that was the last part. How do you navigate the family asking for photos? Well, you kind of explained that
Okay,
too.
so I think we did it.
Yeah, do you send them everything or a few selects?
Yeah, I usually send them some selects. Even like when I was going through for this, I was sending Courtney, their mom, like a bunch of photos. And I was like, look at these. I've never even seen this picture before. And, so she was like, oh my gosh, send more. So like, then we kind of sent some back and forth. But yeah, I mean, I probably don't send them as many as I should, if I'm being totally honest. But it's also kind of hard to, because like like somebody asked, it's like I usually do it in phases of when it does publish, but then I like try to give them some in terms of like sending iPhone ones or like taking them for them while I'm with them. Like she'll be like, hey, can you take a picture of all of us or take a picture of the kids or whatever. And then the same thing with like the Florida trip. Like I was like, these are really nice. I don't want her to have to wait to get these photos. Let me like send her a book of like their family vacation so that they could have that.
Yeah, that's I mean, I feel that's a very nice way to do this, to not like give everything, every single image, but to share good ones. I mean, if it's clear with them what they can and can't do with it, that
Right.
I think that's the way, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You don't think they'd really want to do anything, like that's
yeah.
kind of, when, dealing with a family, it's like a little bit different. It's not like they're public figures or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think once you make clear that they shouldn't share it with other publications, I've actually had that where I never made any of that clear and I thought it was just logic, but apparently it wasn't so logical and they actually did like send it to other publications and my pictures were popping up in a magazine. And yeah, then I realized, yeah, of course, I need to explain this. This is not their world. To me, it made so much sense, but to them, they were like, oh, we have nice pictures that Ilvy sent us. We're going to send them onwards. So what? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a part of it. So it's all
That's,
like the clear communication between everybody.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So let's unshare, I think, your screen so we can see you for a little bit for the last questions. There's also, yeah, there. Now we're bigger. Now we can see you. Thanks for sharing. That was very beautiful and lovely to see.
Thank you.
There is another question coming in from Timothy Jane Graham. How did you get your first pieces published? How did you cultivate editorial relationships? And thanks so much for sharing your time with us.
Yeah. I mean, I was really lucky that I went to a college that kind of helped set up a lot of relationships for us. You know, we went to New York, we went to DC, we met with different publications, and I've always been very good at keeping in touch with people and kind of honing in on those relationships and deepening them. So I kept in touch with a lot of people, and I really loved to give back to this community. So like I've done mentorships, I've also volunteered at a lot of different things. So, you know, that helps to not only, you know, strengthen friendships that I have and relationships, but like it also allows me to be at a lot of different events and see different things and meet different people over the years. I mean, my first editorial, I mean, this publishing for the first time was actually kind of weird because there was a grad student at the time who had asked teachers to submit their students' work for this like big grad school project, and it got published on New York Times Lens blog, her project, and my picture, one of the ones of the kids, was the landing page. And I was like, what is this? And I was so excited because my photo was on New York Times Lens blog, but I had no idea why it was or how it was, and I was very confused, but I was mostly excited. So after doing a happy dance, I was like, wait, why is this here? And then I, you know, looked into it, and that was great. And that kind of just happened because my professor had sent in the photo for me. And
Wow.
then I met Njiokiktjien, who ran New York Times Lens blog when it was happening, at a workshop that I went to Eddie Adams' workshop and as a student. And I met him there and I told him, you published my photo. It was like the first time my photo was ever published. It was like this big deal. And he's like, I really want to look at more of that work. And then he was the first person who published the full story for me. So, and he also is a mentor of mine and a good friend. So it's like really nice just how things kind of happen to happen and the relationships that you come out of them. But working editorially is hard though, too. Like, I don't want it to sound like it's super easy. Like, you know, we go through dry spells, you go through plateaus, like freelancing is really isolating and you don't really have a team to kind of work with. So I feel like, you know, sitting here, I don't want you to get the wrong idea that like it's all rainbows and sunshine. Like, it's definitely difficult. So, you know, I think maintain relationships, be a nice person. I think that goes a long way in this industry. And your intention behind why you're doing the work that you do, I think, is really important. Like, your heart needs to be in the right place. I think people can see when it isn't. So, and be open to like doing all kinds of different things. Like, you know, you saw one very small part of what I do, but I also do very boring assignments and, you know, outsides of buildings and, you know, portraits, which I do love to do, and daily assignment work. And I kind of take everything in stride, and, you know, all the different variations of work that I do help make other work stronger. So, you know, just be really open to things.
I think this was super, extremely solid advice. It's so like spot on. Everything you're mentioning, like keeping the relationships, but also the fact that it's not always perfect. Assignments sometimes just kind of stop, or you see an assignment that you think was really your assignment going to someone else, and you're like, hey, what's going on? I think the main thing I always tell students is to just keep going, keep doing what you like doing, and focus on the stories you want to do, and take the assignments you want to take, and also take the assignments that are boring, because you also need to make money. It's like all the things you said, I really recognize. I think that's really the way to do it. That's how things work in this industry now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a nice industry. A lot of, it's crazy and nice. It's a bit of
Crazy
both.
and nice. That's a good way to put it. I call my story Love and Chaos. It feels very similar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was wondering what you called it, but it's love and chaos. That's chaos. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it might change as I get older, but it's always been Love and Chaos right now. So
Oh, that's really, yeah, I think that's a good title. I think that's perfect, actually. And maybe it can stay until 18 and
Yeah.
beyond.
I'm sure there'll be
Why
a
not?
little more chaos when they hit teenage years, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So, as a last question,
mhm.
where do you see yourself in the foreseeable future?
It's a good question. I hope to be getting commissioned for more stories that I want to work on. I pitch a lot, and I actually love that I pitch a lot. It makes it so that I work on a lot of what I want to work on, which is great. It does feel at times like it is an endless hustle, and I'm sure most of us understand that feeling. So I'd love for it maybe not to feel like so much of a hustle at some point. That would be cool.
Mhm.
I'm applying for some grants to work on some really different other projects, and I'd really love to see those come to fruition. And that would be great. I think at the end of the day, I want to be happy and I want to be doing this for a long time. So however I can be doing both of those things, that would be great overall.
That's beautiful. That sounds good. I thought this was going to be the last answer, but it's not, or the last
Oh,
question, because Joshua Irwandi has a question too. Oh my goodness, I could have asked this one. I was a bit too shy to ask this, but this one is, I'm also curious about this, Joshua. As a photojournalist, often one struggles to keep up with contacts, connections, especially if you travel a lot. Oh my goodness, this is me. Do you have a tip to how to keep in touch with editors, curators? Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Joshua. Great question.
yes, he's also in the mentorship group, so you should check out his work. It's great.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a loaded question, as he knows. So, I
How do
think
you
it's
do
a,
it?
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, how do you do it? No.
I mean, I think you do it as best you can, right? Like if you're in town and you happen to be near them, which is like easier said than done because how many people really are in town? I mean, even I live in New York and most people aren't working in their offices, so it's not like you even go in the office anymore. But I think it's emailing them, it's keeping in touch, it's continuing to pitch them. I think a lot of people get and rightfully so, you get like bummed out when someone doesn't accept your pitch, but like most of the time it's not personal. So I think you have to continue to pitch and continue to reach out and try to get that work. And even if it's an editor that you email a lot and they never answer you, like you're in their mind in some way. So I think that it helps to kind of try to keep yourself relevant. Like, I mean, I used to post on Instagram a lot more and I thought that helped. I kind of think Instagram's dying, which is a little sad, but I don't really care so much about it anymore.
Did you switch platform? Like, are you somewhere else?
I'm not anywhere. I
Okay.
have my Instagram. I still share on it, but just definitely less often. I used to think it was a good way for editors to see your work, and it probably is. I'm sure editors do feel that way, but
They
it
do.
just
I know they
feels
do.
yeah, so I think that that's probably helpful and relevant. And then, I think, like I said, it's just trying to maintain those relationships. If you can go to festivals, workshops, do mentorships, things like that, that's great. I think also volunteering at things like that or trying to mentor somebody else is really beneficial. So, I think it's just trying to kind of keep a flow of conversation without being annoying, which is a line. You got to find the line. So, I'm always like, I'd rather be a little annoying than not have them know who I am. So I don't
Yeah,
know. Do
yeah,
with that what you will, but
yeah.
yeah,
That's the spirit. Good answer too. I really love this chat. The time is almost coming to an end, but there's another question coming in, which is
yeah.
great. Feel free to ask any questions. Oh, there's more. Okay, good. Timothy Jane Graham asks, what's your pitching process? Your idea of a perfect pitch?
That's a great question. I think that you have to be able to answer the following questions. You need to know, what is the story? Who is your audience? Why this publication that you're pitching it to? What have they done on this topic already that you're going to do differently? And why are you the one to do it? And if you can answer all those questions in a pitch, you have a really solid pitch. And I like wholeheartedly feel that way. I think I've really had few pitches be completely rejected. If it didn't work out at one publication, it might have worked out at the second one, but I really had few get completely rejected when I can answer all of those questions and be really clear and concise about it. You know, in terms of like how to physically pitch, like sometimes it depends on the relationship to the editor. I'll send them, you know, hey, I'd love to chat with you. Can you jump on a Zoom? And could be like, go over this pitch. Like, here's like a cliff note of it. And I send like 2 lines of what it's going to be. Other times I send an entire PDF with like a full page of writing if I don't know the editor. Or sometimes I send 3 paragraphs. It kind of depends. I'd say keep it as short and sweet as you can while giving as much information as you can and making sure you kind of hit all those points. Because that's really what they're going to want to know. They want to know that like you didn't just pick any random publication or pick New York Times because it's New York Times. Like, why New York Times? Why this story? What have they done on this? You know, what are you going to do differently to touch on this topic? And then, you know, why are you the right person to go about doing it? I think in this industry, we're talking a lot about like, you know, having diverse storytellers and making sure we're not parachuting into situations and things like that. So like keep all of that in mind and make sure you make a really good point as to like, why are you the one to do this? So I think that helps a lot. And you know, and be positive about it. I try to keep my hopes high and expectations low. It's very helpful.
Start making like quotes on coffee mugs and
big
stuff. I think that would be
yes.
exactly t-shirts in this color because
yes, we didn't do this. We didn't plan this, you guys. This just happened.
It just happened. Well, thank you so much. Oh, and Timothy says, thanks again. You are amazing. And I agree. Well, thanks so much for your time and for all that you shared. It was really, really lovely. And I love the work and good luck on the upcoming years of finishing the project. I can tell you right now, it's never going to finish, but you probably know that already.
Kind of do.
Thank
you guys so much for your great questions and for having me. And it was really nice to share this work that I haven't shared in a really long time. So it was really cool to see a new edit of it and put it together for you.
Nice. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for watching and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.